It is 93.3 WMMR in Philadelphia. I'm Pierre Robert. Good afternoon and welcome to another MM Archive session. Our guest today is no stranger to the city of Philadelphia or to this radio station for that matter. He's played almost every venue in Philly with any number of bands over the years as well as on his own. Certainly known for his work with Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog, Audioslave, but also for a great variety of solo projects, one of which he is out on the road supporting right now with an acoustic tour of small theaters. This latest album is called Higher Truth and accompanied by the very talented musician Brian Gibson. It is our great pleasure to welcome back to MMR Mr. Chris Cornell.
Thank you.
Welcome. So nice to have you. My name's Pierre, by the way.
Hi, Pierre. It's a pleasure to meet you again.
Yeah. You've had some trouble with my name over the years, so I just wanted to get that together.
I don't know what it was, but yeah. No, he's making a joke because you're very polite and you reintroduce yourself to me every time as though it's the first time, as though like I have a stroke between each meeting, which I think is very polite because on the road you meet a lot of people and you never know. You've probably met a guy like 3 or 4 times and then he
Pete Townsend. I've interviewed Pete Townsend many times. He knows the face, and I'll go, I'm the DJ from WMMR, Pierre Robert, and he was signing a book one time, and he goes, yes, you are. I made it easy for him. So on the Songbook tour, you got your first taste of getting out there and playing acoustic, but on this tour you said that what that tour did is connect the dots between all of my bands and all of my different projects and all of the different periods of my career under one umbrella that makes perfect sense. And is that still your experience so far into this tour?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of reducing it to songs on acoustic guitar, and some of them, require a little bit of arrangement adjustment to sort of work that way to the degree that I can actually do it. And I think in that, somewhere, whether it's something that just translates naturally or whether it has to be arranged a little bit and massaged into working in the context of an acoustic song, it brings them all into kind of a world where they make sense together. It's not like you're hearing one song and then the next song and it feels like they don't really belong on the same stage, or that they weren't written by the same person or come from the same creative space necessarily, even though if you did that from album to album, from the earliest Soundgarden recordings to like different solo things I've done and Audioslave or something, it might sound kind of schizophrenic. But this kind of takes the schizophrenic out of it.
I like that. Well, I guess before Songbook Tour, you had done some acoustic dates, and some of them you had described as successful, some of them you didn't think were that good. So that's why you did the Songbook Tour, according to what I was reading. But you said it was still 5 or 6 or 7 dates into that before you kind of got your legs. And you once told me that it was the Philly show at the Keswick Theater that actually helped you turn the corner.
I think that was the one. That was the first one that felt like I'd kind of landed. Like I kind of was. I knew what I wanted it to be, and I knew that it was working, and it felt. I got a feeling when in the middle of that show that I get now pretty much every night, like just the sort of knowing that the songs work together, knowing that there's an audience that wants to hear 2.5 hours of it. To the point where if I play less, it feels funny. Like I actually kind of feel like I'm cheating. Like it's not like they're not getting their money's worth, and I don't know if that's always the way that feels for live shows. I mean, I think that sometimes the audience has had enough after just shy of 2 hours or something. If you go to a movie and it's 2 hours long, I think that's kind of a commitment. So I think that was always in the back of my mind too, was that just this is gonna keep a room full of people interested.
You guys wouldn't be interested in that, I suspect, right?
No, they're not. They just came for some pizza.
On the Songbook Tour, you did this great thing. You had an array of guitars behind you, and off to the side, however, was a record player, an actual turntable. And from time to time, which I just loved, you'd get up and you'd put a record on, and then you'd play to it. Is that? Do you have that on this tour?
Or sing to it. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Where did that idea come from?
It came from initial discussions with my one-time manager about ways of making an acoustic show cool. And the idea of having a turntable came up on stage, and he was talking about, you could talk about records that you love and go play a part of it. And I like the idea of that. I mean, it was almost kind of like that sort of immediately makes it intimate and kind of like the living room when you're doing that. But I didn't really like it. It didn't make sense to me to go play someone else's record. And as soon as I thought that, I realized that, most modern touring artists perform to track on some level, if not entirely, where Kanye West has done entire shows to a laptop, really, to basically the record. Why not just press songs that I want, versions of my songs in whatever form I want, to vinyl and sing to them that way? And I still sort of get that quality. And the first time I did it, I knew it was a good idea, just because as soon as you drop the needle and the audience heard the sound of vinyl, they reacted just to that. That kind of changed the atmosphere. And then another thing I sort of figured out recently was the problem of being sort of stuck behind the microphone for an acoustic tour, because like in a rock band, there's guitar solos, and I can kind of leave and do things and wander around and be in different parts of the stage, and it becomes more three-dimensional. But just as a guy playing acoustic guitar, that doesn't really happen. And so, I thought about doing like a headset mic, but it just looks ridiculous. It looks, I thought it just immediately reminded me of like a late 80s Sammy Hagar kind of thing, and I couldn't bear it. I would rather the show suffer on some other level. So it did. And then a few months ago, Soundgarden played Bridge School and with Pearl Jam and Neil Young, and he just sort of walked out on stage with he had his harmonica holder that he would normally play harmonica in, and sometimes it was in there, and then sometimes it wasn't in there. And he had two little microphones on it, and he was singing into it. And he could move kind of wherever he wanted. And I thought that solves the problem, because it looked really cool, It didn't look ridiculous anymore, so I stole that idea from him. So I do that now, too.
Cool. Well, you also have the extra help of Brian here. And the new album, of course, is Higher Truth, and the first single from it is what I believe you guys are going to play. And Brian is holding a mandolin, is one of my favorite instruments, which opens the song, I believe. The song you're going to play for us is what?
Nearly Forgot My Broken Heart.
Cool. On 93.3 WMMR.
Every time I stare into the sun, trying to find a reason to go on, all I ever get is burned and blind, until the sky bleeds the pouring rain. When you came along, the time was right. Pulled me like an apple, red and right. Wasn't very long, you took a bite and did me wrong, and it served me right. And I nearly forgot my broken heart. It's taken me miles away from the memory of how it broke apart. Here we go round again. Every little key unlocks a door. Every little secret has a light. Try to take a picture of the sun, yeah, it won't help you to see the light. Every little word upon your lips makes a little cut where blood pours out. Every little drop of blood a kiss that I won't miss, not for anything. And really forgot my broken heart. It's taken me miles away from the memory of how it broke apart. Here we go round again. Every little feeling tells me this is leading to a heart. Broken little pieces, and you know I need this like a heart in my hand.
We are here with Chris Cornell and Brian Gibson on 93.3 WMMR in an MM Archive session. I saw a picture at the end of Seattle, the Seattle Symphony, I think it was, posted a picture of you at the Benaroya Hall, and you're behind a harpsichord. Do you actually play that instrument, or are you capable of playing it?
No, not really.
Or not? Or, was it a full-fledged harp? No, it was a harp.
Oh, it was a harp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a harp.
No,
So there's this picture of you and a harp, and it's looking down, back up at you. It's a really cool shot.
Yeah,
but-
that's a hard instrument, I think, to play. Yeah, the harpist for the Seattle Symphony. You can't take that home on the bus. So she goes there to rehearse. So it's in a room.
Okay. Also in Seattle, Mike McCready came up from Pearl Jam and played River of Deceit, the Mad Season song. And Matthew, I think you had a question about Mad Season and how it was going to, or if it might continue. Matt?
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it was back in January. You guys did the Mad Season
Yeah.
with Barrett and Duff and Mike. And I didn't see it in person, but I seen it on YouTube.
Right.
And you just nailed that part.
Oh,
And
thank you.
It was almost like you were channeling your inner Lane Staley. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a very dark Chris Cornell. Were you purposely trying to do that?
I think it's just the composition's fault, really, to be honest. But I also think there's when I was asked to do that, it didn't. What came next was listening to the original recordings, which was listening to Lane sing in headphones, over and over to learn it, and feel like I really knew it. And that was kind of unexpected. I don't want to say dark, but it was, that was tough because I hadn't really done that, and listening to his voice intimately, and sing those words and sing those songs, it definitely sort of forced me to kind of reckon with what happened in his life and the fact that he's not around anymore. And I think that's tough for everybody that knew him, as it is for anybody that loses someone that's a friend that's young, that affects your life, that just fans of his even, I think that's sometimes almost the bigger tragedy in a weird way, is that all of the future imagined creative projects that could have happened that didn't. And I feel that the same way about lots of brilliant people who die young and kind of senselessly, especially. If it's an accident, you feel like it's an act of God. If you feel like they did it somehow, it's sort of harder to reconcile. It's hard to find a silver lining, but it doesn't change what he did at all.
Do you see you four guys ever going out and doing that?
That's not really something that we talked about. No. We might do something else someday. Who knows?
Okay.
Well, the great thing about you is you stay flexible in terms of stuff like that. Right before Soundgarden got back together at the Showbox, is that the name of the theater in
Yes,
Seattle?
that was our first reunion show.
Yeah. I was there by total accident. Stone Gossard had asked me to come out and do some interviews with various members of the bands that preceded Pearl Jam, and he got a night of music together with a bunch of them playing
Right,
together.
I remember that.
It was really an amazing effort on his part to orchestrate this thing, and I learned so much more that I did not know at the time about the Seattle scene. It was actually just a while ago that I learned that you were roommates with Andy Wood.
Yeah.
What was it like? Well, what was he like as a roommate?
The funny thing is that he ended up being my roommate because I called Stone Gossard and said, my brother just left and I need a roommate. You want to be a roommate? And he's like, no, that's all right. I'm pretty happy still living at home, which I think, I don't know how old we were. Wow. We were still pretty young, but he said, you should call Andy, my buddy Andy, and I kind of knew him a little bit. And I think he was looking for a place to stay in town because there was there's an island thing going on in Seattle, and there's a big difference between being on an island and being in town. And so I called him, and he moved in. But it was fun because I think we were sort of having a friendly competition sort of as singer-songwriters the whole time. We both had 4 tracks, or I think I had one and I would record him, and we were both writing songs all the time. And he was almost the opposite of me in terms of how he dealt with his own sort of creative output. He seemed to really have no editing voice in his head at all. He was just free, and he'd kind of write and record anything and not really analyze it too much. And I was sort of the opposite. I have like an editorial staff in my head arguing about what I'm doing. And I took that definitely from him as a lesson to just chill out and be creative and let someone else judge it, or judge it later, but don't have that sort of circumvent the process in the moment. Like, starting to work on a song and me thinking, oh no, this probably sucks. No, it sucks. It sucks.
Well,
and the other danger is going, this is the f***ing best song that anyone has ever written. And that's where the argument comes in on the other voice. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Then the third voice. Well, it doesn't have to be either one of those things.
One of the great, strange, beautiful, sad, cosmic coincidences is his tragic passing. Mother Love Bone on the verge of what looked to be an explosion of success musically, and yet, had that not happened, the entity we now know as Pearl Jam never would have existed. That has always struck me as one of those bizarre things of life. What about you?
Yeah, the thought crossed my mind, I think, before. For sure, I think Eddie's creative output would have, obviously, I think, come to being in a way that affects popular culture no matter what. I can't imagine that wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have happened in that way. Right. So, and I think that's probably a difficult thing to kind of sit and think about, when you're close to the person that's died, that somehow their passing is kind of made way for another form that becomes really important. It's sort of tough.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that I thought about. I'm not going to pretend that didn't occur to me at some point.
We are speaking with Chris Cornell. We're going to take a quick break and come right back with our MM Archive session. And Chris and Brian are going to do another song for us shortly, so stay with us. You can clap. We are back with Chris Cornell and Brian Gibson here on 93.3 WMMR in our MM Archive session. I'm Pierre Robert. The new album's got so many great moments in it, but it's produced by a legend, Brendan O'Brien, and I'm wondering what it was like to work with him. You said you had this great trust that he could do things with your voice that others couldn't. But
he probably the best time I ever had in my life recording with a producer as a singer was Audioslave's Revelations, and it just, I knew that he worked fast as a mixer because he mixed Super Unknown. And I'd heard about how he's worked with other bands in other ways, but I had never worked with him in the context of a producer. And I think it was the very first song that we did. Audioslave was on tour, and we were in Atlanta, and we went to the studio that he worked in all the time, and he just put a mic up in the middle, and we did the whole song live, and it sounded great to me. And then the record sort of, it just kind of came out that way. The whole album came out that way. And so that was one of the things that I thought about in that making this album, which being sort of mostly stripped down, the vocals needed to sound really good. But the other thing is that one of the things he does that I really like is he doesn't want a whole bunch of takes. He's sort of happy with about 2 or 3. And then he wants to move on. And one of those things that happens then is that it stays fairly live, and it stays fairly, I think, kind of organic sounding. You can definitely produce a singer no matter how good or bad to where they sound like their voice is perfect and there are no flaws, and then there becomes kind of no human connection to the piece. And I kind of have to have that as a fan, as a listener. I don't really get that interested in it if there's a bunch of production involved that kind of takes the humanity out of it. And nowadays, with the technology that we have, anybody can do that. My 10-year-old son can do it. It's easy. I really liked that part of it, but the actual recording of the album ended up being even better than I expected, because his pace was really it was almost more intense than mine, and I really liked being the guy that's playing catch up as opposed to the guy that's sort of nervously wanting things to go faster.
There was a story of a reporter I read who went into a Best Buy in New York City, in Chelsea, in fact, and he wanted to purchase Higher Truth. And instead of a person, talk about automation, there's a machine there called Chloe. I'm not kidding. And he actually had to go up to it and put his credit card in it, and it swipe your card, and then this robot would send you some information, and you'd put in what album you want, and then apparently a mechanical arm would go up and pull the record out and drop it into a bin nearby. And to me, everything about that is wrong.
Yes.
Particularly because record stores, how I love them, there's so few of them left, and the idea that a machine named Chloe is going to pick your album for you is insane to me. But that's how he bought Higher Truth.
That's amazing, and it seems really totally unnecessary.
Yes, yes, yes.
Really, really.
We're here with Chris and Brian. Could we get you to do another song on MMR?
Sure.
What would you like to do?
We'll do a song called Josephine. This probably has the oldest origins of a song that's on the album, I think. That I started writing it about 13 years ago. And there, at one point, there was a finished version, and I recorded it. It felt like it surprisingly to me, it just didn't come out the way I wanted it to, and I rewrote it for this album, feeling like I was missing the opportunity because it would fit with this album, and didn't reference the original version, anything about it, even the lyrics, and kind of redid it, and it just kind of flowed out in a way that I really liked. So this is called Josephine.
Chris is adjusting his sleeve on his flannel shirt. Flannel is back, by the way.
Why are you saying it's back? Have you noticed it?
In stores everywhere, you're seeing flannel.
Yeah.
Josephine, where can you be now? Again, the sun is rising on my troubled heart. Don't deny, you know you and I are the making of what fate just can't pull apart. My sweet Josephine, won't you come and marry me? I got every kind of love that you would ever need, dying here on bended knee. Sheets of rain, cold and gray, run down the page, is write your name. Just the weight of your silence now, crashing all around me while you screamed it out loud. My sweet Josephine, won't you come and marry me? I got every kind of love that you would ever need, dying here on bended knee. Like a raven in the cage, the blood of my birth just won't wash away. Like it sticks together down, feet to the flame as I fall on the blade for someone else's pain, for someone else's pain. Rivers of black ink flood, a tapestry of flesh and blood around my frame, a living shrine just for you if you be mine. A golden band upon your hand, needless endless winter behind my I got every kind of love that you'll ever need. Dying here on bended knees. Dying here on bended knees. Dying here on bended knees. My Josephine.
.93.3 WMMR. It's Chris Cornell and Brian Gibson helping out there. And what a wonderful, wonderful performance. The song is Josephine from Higher Truth, which brings me to cover songs I wanted to ask you about. Because on the Songbook album, we heard you just pull out all kinds of cool things. In fact, the last time you came and sang for us, I think you were doing Led Zeppelin during the sound check. And the Songbook album, God, it brought us so many cool songs. I think Thank You's on there. Imagine, you cover John Lennon. Billie Jean from Michael Jackson. Things people might not expect you to do. The current one people have been talking about is the Prince song, Nothing Compares to You. What makes a song make you want to cover it?
Well, I have to like the song, but then it also has to not sound completely ridiculous when I sing it. And that... largely, I think it's a lyrical thing, and it's mysterious too, because I think that's different for every individual. It's different for every person. There are a lot of singers, even rock singers, that could get away with singing stuff that wouldn't. And I think you have to be comfortable with it somehow. It has to sort of fit who you are, and with something like doing the Billie Jean cover, obviously that I completely shaped it. So lyrically it works great. Once it was retooled to sort of fit what I do, it was fine. But if I tried to sing it sort of based on the original rhythm and the bass line, it would be really bad.
Well, this brings me to this series of albums that came out a while back, and it was called Duets, and it was with Frank Sinatra, who I consider to be the original rock star. Had the swagger, smoked and drank. He had the girls. He stayed up all night, and although it was a different style of music, he brought it on stage, and certainly his vocal prowess was quite accomplished. But on the Duets album, they got all these people, and I think the first edition had more traditional singers like Tony Bennett and Aretha Franklin and Barbra Streisand. But on the Duets #2, they started expanding. Jimmy Buffett is on there doing Mac the Knife. Bono's on there doing I've Got You Under My Skin. Chrissie Hynde doing The Lady is a Tramp. So it occurred to me, with your love of covers, if there was a Sinatra song, and if Frank was still alive and there would be a Duets 3, what Sinatra song would you like to sing with the chairman of the board?
I'm not sure. I think I'd have to research that. I would have to look, because there's a lot. I think with Sinatra, I would want to go sort of deeper catalog, because he made so many albums, as you know. There was a time I was working with Alice Cooper on some songs for an Alice Cooper album, and he told me that that Sinatra did a version of Only Women Bleed. Wow. And he was talking to Alice Cooper about it and saying, I did that song. It was really great. And I think Alice Cooper was shocked. I'm shocked. And part of me doesn't believe it, except for that I can't imagine that he would lie about it.
He covered George Harrison. He did something.
That's not as big of a stretch.
I know, but still.
To be fair.
But I mean,
I think he had a love of, obviously had a great love of good songwriting, because look how great of a singer he was, and how much emotion he could translate to the listener in a song. I mean, he's almost unmatched in that way.
But people talk about your voice in somewhat similar terms, in that you have this amazing range. What do you think when you hear those kind of compliments about your own voice? Because I've heard you go places that I didn't think were humanly possible, and then come back again, and it's quite magnificent.
Yeah, I think it's. I think a voice is always sort of evolving, and I think when I had sort of the biggest and most easily accessible range is a period in my life where when I listened to what I did, I don't like it as much as I do now. I don't think I was as in tune with the emotional intent of the song as I am now. I think that happens probably just naturally a little bit with age too, as you live more, you know, and you're sort of forced into more situations, and more bad things happen to you, and more good things happen to you, and you know But there are people that come out fully formed, you know, teenagers that can sing a song and everyone's crying. So I don't know.
We are speaking with Chris Cornell. We're going to take a quick break and come right back in an MM Archive session. And we are back on 93.3 WMMR. The new album is called Higher Truth. Chris Cornell, accompanied by Brian Gibson, and my fellow DJ and lover of music, Matt Cord, is here with another somewhat Seattle-based question, I guess, right, Matthew?
Yeah, go figure.
He loves Pearl Jam.
This is real simple. You know, growing up basically in the Seattle music scene, are you surprised with the mega success Dave Grohl has had with the Foo Fighters?
I think when I heard the first Foo Fighters record, it was surprising because I knew that he had written all the songs and played every instrument, and I didn't know him that well, so that was sort of the first time I was introduced to who he really is. It's like, oh, okay, he's not just a really great drummer. He's one of those guys that can kind of do anything. He's musical on the 100%. Matt Cameron is that way. So from that point, no, I think, you know, a guy that like that has that much talent and is motivated as much as he seems to be, you know, that's when it makes sense to me, actually.
I just want a blood transfusion from him so I could do more things, get more accomplished.
Apparently he drinks like a lot of coffee.
Really?
That
Okay.
helps.
I do that too.
Health tips today.
With-
Drink like way more coffee than is probably a good idea.
We're speaking with Chris. Brian is helping out. I wanted to bring your attention to, I think you were raised Catholic, and I think you converted somewhat recently to more of a Greek Orthodox religious philosophy. But we just had, as you probably know, the Pope in this whole region of New York and Washington, and a couple of days in Philly.
Never heard of him.
Well, as popes go, I think he's pretty cool. I mean, I'm consider myself spiritual, but not religious, and there's a definite difference. But he had this great line, which I loved, which he said, "Pray for me, but if you don't believe, just wish me well." Mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's pretty. I think that's pretty progressive, and like the timing could be better for the Catholic people. I mean, there needed to be some sort of let's update this a little bit with somebody that's a little less rigid and you know, following something that is a couple thousand years old, in need of an update. Like, you know, it's definitely overdue. And from things that I've heard, and yeah, he's a pretty progressive guy that seems to mean well.
Well, with that in mind, I'd ask this to some other bands, and I'm curious about you and your catalog of songs. In your entire catalog of songs, were the Pope to walk in here right now and say, "Chris, I'd like you to play a song for me. Mm-hmm. What do you think is a song I would like?" And the Pope sits right where that gentleman is. What song would you pick out to play for him?
I'd probably, me and Brian, we'd do a bang-up version of Like Suicide. I'd probably pull that up right away.
Great day in the morning.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's one of those songs that it's difficult to necessarily interpret what it means. So then I could ask him what he thought it meant.
Wow.
See if he pulls out any great BS, and then we'll know how great of a Pope he really is.
These acoustic sessions are so fascinating. And last time you came and played for us with a studio audience, you did Black Hole Sun. And there's an almost false ending, as you well know, in the song.
Yeah.
And people started to applaud, and I go, "Oh, that's bad." And, you know, and then you keep going and you finish the song. And I thought, well, this is the only place that happened. And then I discovered that it was happening in various acoustic settings in several places.
Well, during our show when we do it, it happens.
Does it bother you?
No, it's great.
Okay.
We just wait, and then when that's all died down, I finished the song.
Well, because it makes me think of that lack of perfection, because I was thinking we could probably take that scream out of it, and I go, no, I kind of like leaving it in there, you know? It's quite something. I want to ask you about your restaurant. I don't know if you still have it, Black Calavados. Was that the place in Paris?
Yeah.
Do you still have that restaurant?
Yeah. It's sort of more of a lounge now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because at one time it was a restaurant, and I'd always been curious why you liked restaurants. We talked about it last time, but then it occurred to me, I don't know if you're a foodie or not, or would describe yourself as such, but first of all, would you?
To some degree, yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Do you cook?
No, not now. I was a cook.
Oh, you were a sous chef, weren't you?
No, I was like a lead line cook. You know, that's the job you get when you start as a dishwasher, but you're a guy that shows up on time and has a lot of energy. And then after a year or so, you're sort of the boss of, as high as you can go without actually knowing anything about food. But that's a vocation that I would have loved to get into seriously. I also think it's something that was really great to do when you're a musician, because we had no money. I had no money, and we'd get paid once a month. I'd run out of money, 3/4 of the way through the month. And when you work in a restaurant, there's food around you all the time. So that problem is solved. You're not really a starving artist.
I think, what was it, Ray's Boathouse? Is that right?
That was one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm wondering if you have any musician friends that you've hung out with that it might surprise us to learn that they're capable of cooking and indeed cook something really well.
I probably do. I probably have musician friends that are great cooks, and I just don't know about it.
Huh. What would you say then that you cook the best?
I'm pretty good with any kind of seafood.
Okay.
I think that was the thing you had to be good at in Seattle, because there's seafood snobs there, big time.
From there, I want to go to the Hall of Fame. In 2013, you inducted Heart into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you had said that it excited you about the possibilities of the Hall. And the Hall is a subject of so much discussion among music fans, for the good people that have been inducted, rightfully so, and for the not necessarily bad but questionable inductions. I love Donna Summer, but would she or should she be in there before Rush, as she was? Should she be in there? And the Moody Blues, Justin Hayward's birthday just the other day, and I played some Moody Blues on vinyl. They're still not in there, and they
travesty.
Well, there's so many of them that aren't in there, and one wonders why. But that moment of doing that induction did something that re-inspired you about the Hall itself.
Well, what occurred to me in doing it, not just occurred to me, but I saw it, because it was kind of a 2-day event where we were doing rehearsals the first day, and the second day was the actual event. And so we were going in and out of the venue, and there were Heart fans outside with signs the day before, lined up and across the street and everywhere, shouting when I would come out. And then when the actual event was happening and Heart was being inducted, as well as like any of the other artists who were being inducted, the seats way in the back were the seats that the fans had, and that's where the noise was coming from. It wasn't coming from the tables, it was coming from the fans. And the fans were really the ones, if it's not occurring to someone in that room of people that's deciding who should be nominated, the fans will make them look that direction at some point, and it means something to them. And that was when it kind of my whole perspective changed a little bit. Like, they have the right to kind of demand that and to enjoy the idea that their favorite band or artist is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it means something to them. If it does, that's fair. I think it's a slippery slope to even do something like that with an art form. It can't be based on statistics, which makes it tougher. So it becomes subjective. We're talking about rock and roll, which should, if it's doing what it's supposed to do, shun any kind of institution, particularly like a body or a jury that votes on who should be inducted into a Hall of Fame or not. That's all kind of strange, The first instinct of any rock star worth their salt, when asked about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, should be "F them, F this bullshit." Can I say that in this broadcast?
Yes,
okay, good.
You can. We say "F" all the time.
This is bullshit. Yeah. But
in fact,
there are merits to
could I
it.
get the audience on 3 to say "F"? 1, 2, 3. There you go.
You can edit that into the
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
You could say something about we'll put you saying that about the Moody Blues, and then that can be the
yeah. I actually asked Jan Wenner about it once when I did a broadcast from the Hall of Fame. They have a radio studio in there, and he danced around it. But when you actually did the presentation itself, when you look out upon the several rows of incredibly talented people who are your peers, were you nervous? What was your feeling?
I was super nervous. I mean, Quincy Jones and Oprah were right in front of me.
Really?
Yeah, and I think they're both pretty amazing, actually, and also, it's not something that I do that often, and I didn't want to. I had written pretty much the whole thing, and had re-edited it a few different times, and I want to. It's not like Hart was going to get. It's not like Ann and Nancy were going to get re-inducted 5 years from now, and someone else can do it too. That's it. That's the one time you get to do it. So I was nervous of not doing them justice and having it not be the right speech, really. Did I falter? Or do I say... I tend to say things that maybe I shouldn't say sometimes. And if I'm writing it, it's really hard for me to take that back out. There's a little bit of, if it feels like I'm not sure if I should say that, if maybe that's going a little too far, there's another voice in me that says that's exactly what you should say then, kind of thing. And it ended up being... I think when I went into... there was a guy, and they do this on these type of TV events where they'll run your speech on a teleprompter, and you have to read it in front of them so that they know that you know how to read on a teleprompter. And I read it for the teleprompter guy, and we got done, and then he immediately said, "Well, yeah, that's a really great speech." I didn't know him, and I felt like, okay, I got one guy. He was the first guy that heard it, and I thought that made it a little easier, but it was nerve-wracking. Yeah.
I got to go one time when Jackson Browne was inducted, and I was on the main floor. This is when it was at the Waldorf Astoria, and Prince was being inducted that same year, and the dinner part had ended, and the lights went down, and a voice said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Prince," and he started playing, and everyone jumped to their feet and instantly started dancing, and I looked about 30 feet down, and there's Mick Jagger dancing, and I go, "Oh my God, I've made it. I've arrived. Oh my God, this is transformational." And then the next morning back in Philly, I was cleaning cat litter. And I go, I'm not sure that I really have made it. I don't know what the cosmic significance of that is, but I thought I'd share it with you. I want to move on to the fact, well, in terms of the Hall of Fame, I think, is Soundgarden eligible as of this year or next year?
A couple of years ago, I think.
Okay, so and I think they were brought up but maybe passed over. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't. To me, it's, especially being a part of it. It feels like kind of like it feels like a gold watch to me. That's not something that. It's not something that I really care about that much, and it's also something that I care about it because if fans care about it and it means something to them, then it means something to me. And I also think that the amount of bands that get inducted every year and looking like sort of going forward and seeing rock music, for example, sort of disappearing in a lot of ways. The market shrinking and record sales having an effect on it. And it is not the dominant force in popular culture or popular music anymore. So what are they going to do? When it's 2050 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they're going to have a couple of bands lying around, like the Moody Blues, to even have a show. The great-granddaughter of the one-time guitar player of a band called the Moody Blues is going to come out and accept an award. And she comes out on some hoverboard. And
we're speaking with Chris Cornell, and a couple more things before we let you go. Among those things is I saw a picture of it was Johnny Ramone's birthday. It would have been 67 the other day. I did a big block of the Ramones, and then I noticed on your Twitter page you had recently posted a really cool picture of you, a much younger you, but you with him, and it looked like he had signed it.
Yeah.
What did the Ramones mean to you?
They were sort of a bridge to new music to me, sort of a new idea of music and what it means. And when I was a little kid, I was a huge AC/DC fan, and then the first time I heard the Ramones, I realized that the nuts and bolts of it are the same thing, but it's something that I could relate to more. You know, it felt like this is more speaking to me and my age group and what I'm interested in, and I don't really know why. And some of it I think is the lyrics. It wasn't a creepy biker guy singing songs about young girls, so that was, you know, I related to it more. I didn't understand some of the lyrics, which made it interesting because then I had to sort of figure it out. It was smarter. It just was that. You know, I came in sort of right at that age of kind of being able to find a new musical form, which was punk, and seeing that translate into post-punk indie, which was the world that Soundgarden kind of lived in. That was just 100% creativity and pretty much zero worried about commercial success. You needed a few $1,000s to make a record, and you needed an indie label to release it. And most of those labels kind of were plugged into a network that had been building for a few years. So you could go out and tour. You could essentially live out your rock and roll dreams, and write records and write songs and be a band and not really have to worry about any other aspect of it. So there was no carrot dangling in front of me, and that pretty much started with the Ramones and a couple of other bands, where you see them doing it that way. You have to sort of see that it's possible sometimes, I think, and then you know it is, and then you start doing it.
There was a photo recently, and I don't know what the appearance was, but you were back on stage for an evening or a couple of songs anyway with Tom Morello, which of course led to speculation about a possible Audioslave reunion. At one point you didn't think there might be a Soundgarden reunion. There was. Then it caused fans to question whether that might be a possibility. Could it?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. I think in some way. I'm sure there's a circumstance that will arise where we end up in public doing some sort of an Audioslave thing.
You can clap, that's okay. Yeah. And in terms of Soundgarden, there was a picture posted recently of you and Matt Cameron. I think he was playing guitar in the studio. So there's a little work already being done on a new record, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, we started writing it over the last couple months.
Reunions are such an interesting thing, and I read this great quote from you. You said, it's great to still be having new experiences with the same group of guys because we invented a band together and kind of co-invented a genre of music. Being able to come back and experience being a band together at a different time in our lives has been really rewarding, but it's also just nice to still share some part of my life with these people that have been so important to it. I like that.
I think that we, and this is probably true of any band. I remember seeing the Joe Strummer documentary where he talks about falling outs that he had with band members and personnel changes and what that meant to him. And by the end of his talking about it, there's tears in his eyes, and he's saying, you know, when someone is that special, it doesn't really matter how they act or what they do. You have to hang in there. You have to sort of forgive it. And you know, with Soundgarden, we didn't really have that. We didn't really have resentment, you know, to piled upon more resentment. It wasn't that difficult to get back into a room together, but we did share a lot of experiences that were super life-changing experiences that inform our lives today. And it was just the four of us, really. So it would be a shame to be living out the rest of our lives and not being able to do what we get to do now, which is to be able to now be in a room and push it even further creatively and see it continue to evolve and still be a living and breathing thing and not just a reminiscence, something to talk about when we see each other once a year or something.
Well, with that in mind, could we trouble you to do another song?
No, I'm sorry. Time is up. Sure, we're gonna do a song that I think it's the first song Brian and I ever played together. He came up on stage as a guest and played a couple times with me over the years, and this is called
Whatsoever I feared has come to light. Whatsoever I fought on became my greet me with a smile. Sunspots fading. Now I'm doing time. Now I'm doing time. 'Cause I fell on black days. I fell on black days. Whomsoever I've cut out, second now. Whomsoever I've cradled, I'll put you down. Searchlight soul as they, I can't see it in the night. I'm only faking when I get it right. When I get it right. 'Cause we fell on black days. I fell on black days. How would I know that this could be my fate? How would I know that this could be my fate? What you wanted to see good is made you blind. What you wanted to be yours is made it mine. So don't you lock up something that you wanted to see fly. Hands up for shaking, now tying, now tying. I should've mind the change. I should've mind the change. I should've mind the change. 'Cause I fell on black days. I fell on black days. How would I know that this could be my fate? How would I know that this could be my fate? How would I know that this could be my fate? How would I know that this could be my fate?
Chris Cornell on 93.3 WMMR, helped out by Brian Gibson. Where did you meet Brian?
Well, it's kind of a long story. It was there was this truck stop. Okay, no. I was gonna make one up.
First of all, I just love how he was able to almost harmonize with you vocally. Mm-hmm. That was magnificent. It was just amazing.
Yeah, that's called a good musician.
It was really stunning.
Yeah.
Really great.
Thank you.
You knew him?
A mutual friend sent me one day some arrangements that Brian had done, one of that song and another song, and suggested that when I come through Atlanta, I think it was it Atlanta? Yeah. That I bring him up and have him do those songs, and it seemed like a good idea. And then we did it. It was really great. And so we did it a few more times whenever I would come through a town doing this where Brian was. And so when I came out with this tour, I'm playing a lot of new songs, but I also felt like it would be nice to add something else, because this is like the 4th acoustic tour I've done in the U.S. and I thought it'd be great to bring someone out. And Brian came to mind first because we've done it and it was great. And, there wouldn't be like a figuring out if it's going to be good or not kind of thing. I knew it was going to be good. And Brian's able to just kind of play on anything I throw at him, even if I have him come out and it's a song he's actually never played on before and doesn't have a part for it. He'll just go at it. He's not afraid, and I like that.
That's great. That's
kind of the spirit of this type of a tour anyways. I just kind of make it up as I go along. So I like the idea that if there's going to be someone out there for a few songs, that they're going to be able to wing it too, and I change songs and rhythms in the middle of playing them all the time, and he's kind of right there.
Have you ever pulled out like a cover you've never done before and say, "Oh my God," or someone yelled it out from the audience or something?
That's how. I don't know if we've done that. Have we done that? I don't think so. Yeah, I've been known to do that.
Are you happy?
Yeah, very much.
You seem like you just seem so grounded. So you float in all these different universes musically, and thrive in all of them, and it's really cool to see. But I love you in this format, and
thank you.
I hope you continue to do it.
Well, I've been lucky, to be able to do all these different things and have them sort of work harmoniously together, and all of the people involved in them being happy, and then simultaneously, having a happy marriage and a family, and being able to see that work, and all of those components kind of seem to work together all the time. And it's been a while where it's, it feels like it's something that's doable, and to be fulfilled in the artistically, but have that not be causing problems in your personal life, because it often does. That's a really huge thing. And I've met a lot of older, very famous musicians on the road that we'd come to their show, and I'd have Vicky and my kids with me, and they would make a comment that because I'd be on tour too, and they would make a comment and say that you're doing it right, and good for you. That's how you are. That's how you were being a rock musician in 2015,
and being a good father and family member at the same time.
Yeah, instead of trying to see, how many bottles of Jack Daniels you can get through before you fall over.
Listen, everyone can't be Keith Richards, okay? One final thing before we let you go. I've played this for you once when we did a telephone interview, but I wanted to play it with a little more amplification here, and I wasn't sure how clearly you could hear it. Communications are a fascinating thing. We were talking about Mercury retrograde off the air, and when they go afoul, it's also quite fascinating. And I got a request. I play a lot of requests on my show, and I love hearing from our listeners. And MMR, as I've told you before, has been around for 47 years, playing newer and older stuff, and I've been here for 34 years. But I love hearing from people. So I answered the phone one day, and your song had just come out. I went to you should be able to hear this through your monitors or something, but I went to the phones one day, and I answered them, and I said, MMR, good day.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. I'd like to make a request for a Chris Cornell song.
Okay, what'd you have in mind?
You know the song that he played from Casino Royale, the James Bond?
Oh, You Know My Name, right.
Pierre?
You Know My Name, correct?
Yes, Pierre Robert.
Yes.
I know you. I listen to you every day.
No, that's the name of the song.
I don't know the name of the song. No, I have no clue the name of the song. I'm sorry.
No, that's the name of I wasn't asking you if you knew me. I was asking you if you knew the name of the song.
The song? No, I don't know. It's from the Casino Royale.
No, it's called You Know My Name. Who's on third? It's called You Know My Name.
I know your name. I don't know the name of the song, though.
The song is called You... Never mind. What is your name?
My name's Chris.
Chris, all right, Chris. Have a great day, and thank you for the call.
Thank you.
And the song is called You Know My Name.
You know my... Oh, that's the name of the song.
Now we're cooking with gas.
That's right.
Have a great day, buddy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow, you got lucky that day.
And I played that with the Abbott and Costello bit, who's on first. You just
That's
can't
great.
pay for a call.
You have to give me a recording of that.
Would you like that?
Yeah,
I'll get
yeah.
it for you. It was as cool a day as I've ever had. To the degree, Chris, that people will call. That call is 5 or 6 years old, and request the call to go into the song. They request the call to go into the song, and it's so magnificent. Anything you'd like to say to that, Chris? I don't know who he is, where he is.
Yeah, you know what? You rule. Thank you. You're amazing.
Having said that, I want to thank Brian Gibson, an amazingly talented musician. And we'd certainly like to thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. The album is Higher Truth, and the gentleman who sings on it is Chris Cornell.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is 93.3 WMMR in Philadelphia, another MM Archive session.